Cool, great. So this is the seventh episode of Hands Up, and today we're going to discuss the book Orbital by Samantha Harvey. It's a book which has won the Booker Prize, and it's broadly based on space exploration. And we have Nikita Pathak to discuss this book. And she's so obsessed about this book that she has made so many notes in a notebook and also many other notes in the copy itself. Um, so, Nikita, why don't you introduce yourself? Obviously, you've done it already twice, but this is the assumption is there might be people who would be listening to this episode for the first time.
Hmm. So I think your audience will get bored of me coming and sharing my thoughts.
Or wait, let me introduce you this time because your previous introduction, I don't think it was really comprehensive.
Okay.
Like it was just some sort of a Instagram caption kind of an introduction.
Okay.
So Nikita Pathak is a person who has studied from DU and TIS, and she has studied humanities because she wasn't so good in mathematics. And she is very very vocal about all her opinions, and she is like a very I don't know, multifaceted person. Like she knows how to sing properly. I mean, she sings really well. That is something she didn't tell in her previous introductions. And she is also able to have multiple viewpoints. I mean, she is able to understand multiple viewpoints of any given issue, and that makes it very interesting to have any conversation with her. um, I think that is the right introduction.
You are very kind. Thank you for that. Yes. And thank you for the compliments on my singing. I really don't sing that well, but I try sometimes. But
Yeah.
thanks for that introduction, and I'm really happy to be here again. And this is
Yeah.
another book that I would love to discuss again. So go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
So, Orbital is a book, it's broadly about space exploration, right? And I know that you're also really concerned about the climate and other social issues and a lot of things. Um, we'll start off with something which is totally kind of unrelated to the book or its contents. Do you really see any point in space exploration? Like, I know you hate Elon Musk, but he's the guy who has made maximum innovation. Like, reusable rockets was just theory. Many people told it's not possible, and now he's thinking about interplanetary, species. Humans being interplanetary species because somehow Earth is not enough. So, is there any point in for space exploration?
I think great question. Um, is there any point to space exploration? I don't know how to answer that question because how do you everything that has come out of history has been a part of, or rather has been a result of human curiosity. Like, not just space exploration, political structures, economic structures, how civilizations have built themselves have somewhere come together the way they have because of human curiosity. And if the interstellar exploration is one of those frontiers where human imagination wants to go, then I don't think uh, anyone can stop it. It will happen regardless, right? So whether it is useful or not, I don't know. Of course, it seems wasteful to spend that kind of money on something where whole continents are starving. But again, I don't think on Earth we have a scarcity problem. It's a distribution problem. A few people have a lot of resources and they don't want to share,
Hmm.
right? So I don't think saying that space exploration is absolutely, it's a moot point to do so, I don't think so, because I'm pretty sure some things or the other have come in the process of space exploration, which have, value to us back on Earth as well. And I sincerely believe that, human curiosity cannot be suppressed. Like, so might as well give it an avenue where it can thrive.
Yeah, but I think I understand. There was also earlier there was this stupid thing about finding a formula to turn anything into gold, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like every curious thing is actually worth spending money on. And also, like the whole point of space exploration now, it seems, is that Earth is going to be, gone. Like Earth will be uninhabitable, and that is why we need to find another home. That seems to be the broad theme. It is not about purely exploration as such.
Hmm.
I mean, see, I know there can be multiple narratives about any particular issue, but it seems like this is the loudest opinion out there right now.
Hmm.
It's not about knowing what is there in the soil of Mars. Like when they did moon landing, they collected some sample, they brought it back, and they did okay, what is the analysis, where is the water. I mean, all those were real pure scientific questions which are about human curiosity. But right now, whatever starship we are launching, whatever new efficiencies which are being built, like reusable rocket or whatever it is all designed purely for multi-planetary,
Yeah.
colonization.
Absolutely. I mean, the megalomania of, a few billionaires, of course, the whole planet is paying the price for the same. Like, and soon maybe multiple planets will pay the price for the same. Right? So there's this quote in the book, like, it's a very quotable book. And even though it is not directly, you mentioned that it is not directly related to the book, but I'll still mention a quote here where, okay, so spoiler alert for our whosoever is listening to this particular episode. Although there's nothing to spoil in the book per se, but if you have not read the book, we might be talking about direct quotes from the book, which you might want to check out later. So I'm just warning it out here. And now I'll proceed with the quote. So there's this point where Chie is looking at a photograph of her mother who is, pointing at the moon, and she goes into this entire discussion with herself, imagining it to be with her mom. And where her mother says that you must never forget the price humanity pays for its moments of glory, because humanity doesn't know when to stop. And I think this is a very pertinent quote in terms of your question right now, because we really don't know when to stop. So when we say that, interplanetary travel or interplanetary colonization is going to be a reality in a few years, we need to ask who exactly is doing that. Is it something that everyone wants? But yeah, I will come back to my previous point that okay, someone has the power to do it, and if someone has the, I don't know, whatever ego to do it, or like whatever they want to prove, whatever this big idea they want to be immortalized by, they will do it anyway, right? So, but space exploration, oh, eventually, but because if we just talk about the origins of scientific thought, it is rooted in space exploration in a sense, right? We were taught, like in the ancient times, it was that the earth is the center of the universe, but it was only when Galileo and Kepler came in after their observation of the space and universe, that we got to the heliocentric model, that sun is actually the center. So, and it gave rise to this entire scientific thought, like the modern science as we know it today, modern western science, comes from this very dichotomy, this divorce between the church and this scientific thought, right? So of course it has repercussions for our society, whatever we do, whatever we try to explore out there in the front. For example, when they sent out Voyager, was it, where
Mm.
they put in like these small snippets of earth sounds,
Yeah.
something carved on it, and that was very cute, right? So in the sense that you cannot stop human imagination, but yeah, it is definitely, one must question that who exactly is orchestrating all of this, and are those resources worth it for one man's ego? That's all I think that I want to say to that. baki, I think our listeners are smart enough to find an answer to this question, maybe solve our dilemma as well.
Hmm. No, I mean, you got into the book even before we, got it, actually started speaking about it because we were just talking about something tangential, right? So, I mean, the way Elon Musk says is that life is anyway boring day to day. You're doing all these routine tasks. There has to be something very exciting to do. I mean, I buy that theory that okay, science fiction is exciting and it's worth working on. But as a human residing on Earth in Delhi, I mean, we saw some 50-degree temperature, 45-degree. I mean, it's like, I mean, what if this becomes the norm everywhere? It's going to be very bad, right? At least, even with ACs and all, we are all really suffering. I mean, there has to be some sort of work on like why is this happening and why is it really because of our activities or is it happening on its own without any, I mean, at least there is no 100% establishment of correlation between human activities and change of climate change, right? I mean, change, not change of climate change, just climate change, which is weird phrasing. And this inability to establish correlation actually gives opportunity for some politicians to misguide the public as well, right? Like, uh, I mean, we can't just say to the public that so many experts have told this, so it must be true, so we must invest, etc., etc. And US did invest on green energy and all of that, and there was some other mismanagement on the side, and finally Trump came and said they were doing a green fake deal, or what was it, green fraud deal.
Something like
So
that.
he gave some, really, I don't know, some bad terminology for any green energy initiative.
Hmm.
So he blamed all the inefficiency on something which was related to climate action or something of that sort. So, I mean, it's fine, it's good that we are curious and we are working on some audacious goal or something.
But the question I want to ask here is that even if we are not, let's say we stop space exploration,
Hmm.
will this solve the redistribution problem back on Earth?
Not just about.
Because the power structure that governs the world, the geopolitics, and the current neoliberal order itself, right? It doesn't really allows for such redistribution.
No, no, I'm not talking about redistribution. I'm talking about working on solutions which make Earth habitable rather than working on solutions which is having its origin in a doomsday theory that Earth is gone, now we have to be multiplanetary. That is a theory, right? I'm not talking about saving impoverished kids in Africa, reallocate that money for this. I'm saying, okay, why don't we reallocate these resources and brain and all this energy towards making Earth habitable rather than, see, there are two things. There is some, unrealistic solution which requires so much luck and so much effort for it to work. And then there's a realistic or something which is within your reach. Like, let's say you can't run 42 kilometers tomorrow, but at least you can run 1 kilometer, right?
Yeah.
So that is a kind of trade-off I'm talking about. It's not about morality or giving the hungry man a shelter and food. I'm
It all
talking.
again boils down to who is making those decisions.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just about who is making the decision. It's also about popular culture, right? For example, if it is a book, if there's a book on space exploration, and it's making space exploration so sexy and it's winning awards and it becomes a movie and it becomes part of popular culture, then even the public starts thinking, okay, this is the solution. There's no solution on Earth. We have to get out of Earth only. So it's also about perception and that soft power which all these individuals are having, right?
Yeah,
So
but
that's
I think the entirety of space race has been a dick measuring contest between USA and erstwhile USSR, and then eventually India and China enters the race, and then so many other countries. Just so the entire idea of space race itself is
see, it's
like,
so funny.
yeah,
Traffic lights in Delhi are not working, and whenever a single traffic light breaks down, there is absolute chaos on the roads. Okay, we are not able to get something so basic as traffic lights right. Okay, let's say you can't build 100% accurate traffic light. If some traffic light breaks down, then the local traffic police guy should get to know, right? It's broken down. Then he can send one traffic police and he can manage the traffic. That technology also we don't have, and we are investing 10,000 crores on some human space program.
because as you mentioned, it's perception building, right? India
Hmm.
sending Mangalyaan, Chandrayaan, all
See,
of
I'm not
that.
against that. I'm not.
Again, neither am I, but I'm just saying
Hmm.
ki what you're saying, mostly it is about this so quote unquote image and
Yeah.
perception of the countries that are doing that, which is why most of space race and space exploration has been this constant, ego tussle between countries, with its ego
Yeah.
of men measuring against one another.
Yeah, I mean, it has become part of some national pride kind of a thing. Even like this guy Musk and Trump. Then this Trump was telling that story of that space starship or something coming down, and this whole thing was hugging like this. Like I am so fucking tired of listening to that. He keeps saying that in every speech, but it's not like Trump is very pro science and he is, you know, empathetic towards the earth and exploring space or something. It's just like his childish, idiotic brain saw it and it found it cool, and then he thought, okay, this is awesome, so cool. I think there's nothing beyond that because all of his other policies are like nowhere taking into account the climate and all of that, right?
Yeah, in fact, he's banking on it.
Yeah.
He's banking on climate change to open that entire Norway region up, which is
Mm.
usually surrounded by permafrost or something like that. If
Mm.
that opens up, he'll have a new trade route, and
Mm.
that's what he's eyeing. So I mean, I don't know. Like discussing Trump is just straight up depressing. Like, and I wonder that this is the so-called superpower of this world, right? And if
Mm.
they are purportedly leading the world, we are all going to hell. So it's just straight up depressing to discuss Trump, Musk, Zuckerberg. They're like, oh my, I'm like, oh my god. I just feel helpless sometimes.
Mm. So yeah, I think let us actually talk about the book because enough of depressing stuff.
Yeah.
So you said one of your childhood dreams was to be a space explorer. What is astronaut?
Yes.
I mean, was it the reason why you started reading this, or like, what was the reason?
So, as a child, I have always been fascinated by the night sky. Like, I come from a small town where there used to be like a lot of load shedding, or some dysfunctional transformers. We not get electricity at night, and there were no street lights per se. There were no inverters or batteries at that point. So it was complete darkness with me and my entire family at the terrace looking at the stars. And since there was lesser light pollution back then, the stars used to be very, very clear. And it was fascinating that, something like that exists. Something beyond our reach, something that is that cannot be touched yet, right? So I think that was very, very like it was very fascinating for me as a child, and my mom used to like tell me like, oh, this is the Saptarishi constellation and Orion and all of that. So basic constellation she taught me how to chart out in the sky, the North Star and all of that. So as a child it was very fascinating, and I when I learned of this word, when I wanted to understand who exactly gets to go there, right, then I got to learn this word called astronaut. And I decided as a child, okay, I want to be an astronaut. And at that time, that entire Kalpana Chawla tragedy also happened. So for me, for the longest time, Kalpana Chawla was my role model.
Hmm.
Like, okay, like, she's a girl from Karnal, it's a small town in North India, Haryana, and if she can reach there, maybe I can also become an astronaut. So all of that was there, and I used to like specifically look for books that sort of broke down space science for me, which sort of broke down how planets work, how stars work, and all of that entire uh, how what is the relationship between them. As a child, I'm talking about when I was in third standard or fourth standard or like that. But by the time I reached class 7th, I understood I don't know how to do math, and I will never be an astronaut because I can't do math, right? So I decided I had to give up on this dream, but continue to actually be fascinated by uh, space science itself. So I remember I was in class 12th when Interstellar released. 2014, right? So I was in class 11th at that point, and Interstellar had released, and as a part of our Children's Day celebration, our school took us to watch Interstellar, like 11th, 12th standard. I was in standard 12, and at that point, I was in my peak physics nerd mode where I had just finished all of Stephen Hawking's and all of most of Carl Sagan and on to string theory and all of that. At that point, if you remember, you know, Higgs boson had come into the picture and all of that. So it was a very fascinating time for me to be engaging with space science. And when that happened, when Interstellar finally came in and sort of just blew my mind as a child, because I think this is what I'm missing now, the sense of wonder I had as a child. It's missing in me now, but back then it was such a cool thing to happen to me. Like, I'm reading all of this, I'm completely understanding what this movie is talking about, and this movie is also putting it together in such a beautiful way. So this is kind of my journey into why I love space science and how I love space science. And when I actually got to know of this book, I was just browsing in a bookstore and I came across it and I was like, oh, this won the Booker Prize, might as well just check it out. And it turned out to be such a beautiful, poetic, ruminative book about our existence vis-a-vis space. So I was like, I have to read this. So yeah, that's how I ended up here.
But what was the blocker here with respect to math? Like, you didn't have a good teacher, or like you had some other issue with it?
So for two years, sixth and seventh standard, my math teacher was my class teacher, and she used to bully me. Like,
Hmm.
it was active bullying to the
Hmm.
point where my mother had to get involved, like
Hmm.
to complain to the principal.
Hmm.
So I developed this permanent fear of mathematics in the sense
Hmm.
that I understand it, I do everything right, I get the concepts right, and I do the questions right at home. But when it's an examination, I black out. So I remember class 10th examination mathematics, I was just crying horribly, and then just crying, wiping my tears, writing the answers, then crying some more because I cannot see anything because my eyes are blurry from crying. So if so because of that particular bullying incident for 2 years, I developed this like this aversion to mathematics, especially in like a exam setting. So now I feel like math is this beautiful bakery with yummy brownies with a glass wall, and I'm a child outside that glass wall just looking inside, but I can't go inside. So something like that.
I mean, then did we have all this YouTube and all? Because now there are so many other resources and all, right?
And not when I was growing up. Internet was a luxury.
Expensive.
Yeah, it was a luxury. It was expensive. Broadband connection. If you put one website wrong, it will give you like a bill in thousands.
Hmm.
So of course, the I had only resources I had were books, like hard copies.
Hmm.
So my whole world revolved around the library. Okay, this is what I can get. This is what I can get. But yeah, math. Nah. So the math story got spoiled by that particular teacher. Aradhna Mishra, if you're listening to this, I hope you understand your mistake, and I hope you're never happy, and I hope your child sucks at math.
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, don't be. I hope none of the teachers. I mean, if they can't teach, at least they should not terrorize the students. Maybe like they can. Now there's internet, so there's so much of abundant resources on the internet, and maybe at least if they can't teach, they should not at least traumatize the kids. Yeah. So I mean, I picked the book because you were raving about this, and that too, I accidentally picked it up. I guess there was. So actually, I went to a friend's house and I was reading that other book, Harun and the Sea of Stories. I dropped it. I forgot to take it back and put it in my bag. And I had like 1 hour to spare in GK2 market. I just went randomly into Kunzum and I thought, okay, let me just pick this, and I just picked it. Um, yeah. So I mean, like obviously, without math, it's very hard to get into these spaces, which I understand. Um, so then after reading this, I also heard like other opinions, right? Like some people were not so impressed by this book, and even I was sort of in a very gray area whether this is actually fiction or is it just like non-fiction mixed with some part of fiction, and there was no real storyline to it as such. So I mean, so far we have not summarized the contents of the book, and since you made so many notes, I think you should summarize like what this book is all about.
So I think this book is about experiences of four astronauts and two cosmonauts in space, where they are going over uh, their entire schedule in space over a period of one whole day, like 24 hours. For them, it's not that, because for them they see 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets in their orbital journey, and they are just up there for some maintenance work. They are there for some maintenance work, and they are also working on someone is working on developing cell cultures that can survive in space. Someone is working on certain plants that can survive in space and all of that. So they're all kind of researchers trying to understand what kind of life will survive in zero gravity in space and all of that. And it is what they experience. We see from their lens what they experience over a course of 24 hours per earth time, and what they witness from up there, and what they feel about it. So each chapter is basically one orbital, and during that orbital, someone from these six astronauts will be showcased from with their inner thoughts, with their how are they correlating this experience with their journey in space and their life back on earth. So this is largely the theme of the book. It's a very it's a I found it to be very ruminative, very uh, beautiful in that sense. The way it is written, the language that has been used, the care that has been put into the words that are written on the book, like if, the kind of metaphors that have been created, the kind of words that have been used to describe. I think I just found it to be very, very, very beautiful. So I think that's. Do you think that's an apt summary of the book?
And the destination of these astronauts is the moon, right? So they're just moving from one orbital to another, so that finally the final destination is the moon.
No, I think they're just up there at the International Space Station for some uh, basically work.
Yeah, so yeah, they are moving to the moon, right? So because in chapter in or it's called as orbit 16 rather than chapter 16. So it says by now lunar astronauts are journeying in their little thimble of a command module towards moon orbit. I mean, since it is really written in some poetic manner, like it is not written like mission statement, I want to go to the moon or something. Obviously, they use some sort of a trivializing kind of a language saying that, oh, they're just hanging around, but I mean, they are moving to the moon, and that is an entire journey which is being explained. So, what was my point? I just forgot. Um, yeah, so as she explains all of this, we are not clearly told whether they landed on the moon or not. But during this orbital changes, or every circle they go around the Earth, they're continuously relating their visuals with their own personal lives, like their own personal emotions. So one of the astronaut is thinking about what his wife, his relationship with his wife, And then one of the female astronauts is thinking about her relationship with her mother. And obviously, there is some interplay of words, and there's also this issue related to nationalism, which is touched upon. Like within the space station, they have made separate toilets for separate astronauts. So even, I mean, I've noticed this common pattern. No matter how complicated the technology is in the story, the human emotions are still primitive. Like even if you take what is that, Star Wars or Dune, or even Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, or even in this particular book, the range of human emotions has not at all evolved, no matter how the technology is evolving. Um, so where does this book fall? Like, do you consider it science fiction or just some essay, or is it really a story? Because okay, they are just explaining what these fictional astronauts are seeing. There is some narrative about their personal lives. At the end, also, there's no conclusive evidence whether the mission was successful, failed, or whether something new was discovered. There's nothing speculative as well, because all the science is very straightforward.
Hmm.
So where does this fall, like for a potential reader who wants to read this?
I think it's not science fiction in the most colloquial of senses, because when we think about science fiction, as you mentioned, we think of Star Wars, Dune, Star Trek, uh, maybe, you know, other interstellar kind of, something that is more, something which has a more, I think, a very clear beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
Right. The book is not like this. The book is definitely fictional accounts of fictional astronauts up there in space, but it's more like their ruminations. It's more about their internal world as much as it is about them being in space. So I think it's more of a how do we call it? Like, it's more of introspective and ruminative in its quality. Uh, I will not call them essays also per se, but it's not a clear story with a beginning, middle, and end. It's definitely a day in the life of these astronauts, which they are, you know, send this recording to my friend to keep
Your
it.
friend, you don't even.
I think we can safely place it in the category of science fiction, but in a more poetic account of things, a more narrative kind of quality to it instead of just being like a science fiction story. So I think that's where I would place it. What about you? What do you think this is?
See, I'll tell you what I felt about this book. But a lot of people, like when I sort of read reviews on Goodreads, the complaint against this book was it's neither science fiction nor is it, a real non-fiction kind of a book, and it's also doesn't have any solid story because there's no real beginning and ending, as you said. So I was sort of curious. Before I tell me what I felt, I just want to read what the Booker committee thought about this, like what they felt about this book. So they say I'm quoting from the website. It is quoted by Edmund D. Wall, who is the chair of judges. He is saying, in an unforgettable year for fiction, a book about a wounded word. Sometimes you encounter a book and cannot work out how this miraculous event has happened. As judges, we were determined to find a book that moved us, a book that had capaciousness and resonance that we are compelled to share. We wanted everything. Orbital is our book. Samantha Harvey has written a novel propelled by the beauty of 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets. Everyone and no one is the subject, as 6 astronauts in the International Space Station circle the Earth observing the passages of weather across the fragility of borders and time zones. With her language of lyricism and acuity, Harvey makes our words strange and new for us. All year we have celebrated fiction that inhabits ideas rather than declaiming on issues, not finding answers but changing the question of what we wanted to explore. Our unanimity about Orbital recognizes its beauty and ambition. It reflects Harvey's extraordinary intensity of attention to the precious and precarious world we share. That is what they felt. So even they were not looking for any, category of
Correct.
book. It was all about how it made them feel. Now, yeah, it's also something which impressed you as well, right? It's all about how you felt.
Yes.
I mean, it was the same with me because even I didn't take the lens of literary analyst or whatever it is, because obviously I'm not. Um, so what it made me feel was, oh shit, I'm so small in this entire universe. Oh, I don't have any time left. Like, I mean, best case, I have 30 good years left. And you start counting it in terms of hours and weeks and seconds. And like, there was some sort of random urgency in my belly after reading this. And there were so many other habits and goals which we have been discussing. Oh, I want to do this many workouts. Oh, I want to do these, read these books. Oh, I want to, you know, put out these podcast recordings. I mean, those things were already there in my mind. And after reading this book, I felt, oh shit, like I don't have so much time left. And it sort of made me more and more focused. And it made me more and more, not in a panicky way. I was not anxious as such, but I was like, okay, every day I have to make the most out of every day. Like, how can I do that? And I sort of came. I mean, I came up with some sort of plan. Like, first of all, drop all the baggage. I don't have to keep on ruminating about what has already passed, because I'm not going to get the time wasted by thinking about the past. And the second thing was probably to, develop a routine which will make me more efficient, healthy, this, that, so that I can do something interesting with whatever time I've left. So I think that is where I felt this book was a great literary work, because it was able to touch those chords within me. Whether it has a structure or not, I mean, that's a different question. That is for the analysts to talk about. But I sort of felt that we should talk about this because, like, everyone may not be having that kind of a worldview that we are having, and probably they'll pick up the book and they'll feel nothing about it.
Yeah.
And it should not be like they don't know what this book is all about. Yeah, do you have anything to add to that, or like how did it make you feel? Like, obviously this is a touchy feely kind of a thing, right?
Yeah. I think I have made so many notes within the book. Like, the book sent me on so many journeys of my own, within my own self, right? Each chapter sort of provokes a thought, like, provokes a certain thought in you that, okay, if this is the situation here, then, what would you be rather doing? As you mentioned, right? It evokes this feeling of what have you been doing with your life? And I think it's very quotable, the book, because it's written, with this as the as the quote that you read from the committee. It's the lyricism of the book is very, very beautiful, and there are these beautiful parallels that she has drawn. For example, there's that one point she mentioned that going in space in orbital is like playing a game of musical chairs. Like, you cannot stop until the music stops. So I think this was a comparison that I had never thought of before, and when it did come to me, I was like, oh my god, this is so beautiful. And just left me to think of different questions. For example, one of the questions I ended up pondering upon was, what was Laika feeling like when it got to space? Like, Laika is the first dog in space, right?
Yeah.
So we'll never get to know how Laika felt. She was alone in that cold, dark space with no one around. How would she be feeling? Like, even though it's just a dog, right? But what would she be feeling? And it's a place that this book took me to. So I did not think of this question on a standalone way. I was just thinking, okay, these are the astronauts who are thinking about all of this, and just put me on a tangent on who went to space first. So I first answer obviously was Laika, and I was like, oh, then how would this dog be feeling? And I eventually ended up feeling very depressed about it. So, but yeah, I think the book has this quality of making you deeply introspect your life, to deeply think about things around you. And I think the biggest thing the book does for me is like, um, it's like an it's like uh, an eulogy for Earth, in the sense that it is telling you, it is constantly reminding you of the beauty of the planet that we live on, and how fast and how close we are to losing it. So if there's this moment where all of them are observing these aurora lights from space, and I had to stop reading the book in that moment just to visualize that. It was so beautifully written. So I think these small beautiful pictures that Harvey has captured in the book, and they really force you to think of your life. For example, Chie's mother dying is such a great analogy of the planet dying. Earth is our mother, and Chie's mother dying and Earth's in the process of dying, I think that drew a great parallel between the two. So I think overall I found the book to be deeply moving in terms of its lyricism, in terms of its words that have been used, and uh, it I could see that there was joy in writing this book. There is so much care and love put into the book. So I think I just thoroughly enjoyed that. It just deeply moved me in that sense. So yeah, what about you? What did you feel like? You mentioned about the urgency, but were there any other questions that popped up in your head?
Yeah, I think that I just wanted to read this quote, which actually captures what you were trying to, say. Obviously, it is very quotable, but I don't know whom I'm going to quote all of these lines to.
Yeah.
Maybe it will, in a good conversation, it will be a quote which I'd probably use. But this is what she writes in one of these chapters. She says, "Our lives here are inexpressibly trivial and momentous at once. It seems he's about to wake up and say, I mean, he is the one of the characters, which is, Petro or someone.
Yeah.
Uh, both repeated. So I'll just read it once more. Our lives here are inexpressibly trivial and momentous at once, it seems. He's about to wake up and say, both repetitive and unprecedented. We matter greatly and not at all. To reach some pinnacle of human achievement only to discover that your achievements are next to nothing, and that to understand this is the greatest achievement of any life, which itself is nothing, and also much more than everything. Some metal separates us from the void. Death is so close. Life is everywhere, everywhere. So obviously, the metal which they're talking about is the space station itself.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it just captures like how, what I mean, whatever is happening to you in this particular moment, good
Yeah.
or bad, or some achievement, whether you got a promotion or a hike, or whether you won some marathon or something, like it is a great achievement for you, but it's like
Yeah.
nothing.
And also, I think that one painting that they keep referring to, Las Meninas, or La Meninas, if I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
But I had stopped reading the book and looked up that painting, and the kind of conversation around that painting was like, I was so engrossed in that I actually ended up staring at the painting for quite a while, and trying to make sense of what they're trying to say. So it was just so beautiful. I think I had mentioned this in my notes. Sean made me look up at Las Meninas multiple times, and it is a fascinating painting. How we connect and are connected through common threads of art and human experiences. And I think this is also a part of this entire book, that even if they are people in space, even if they are out there, they're like literally away from our reach, we can still connect to them because of our common experiences on Earth and, common experiences as human beings. So, yeah, I think that was really, really fun. I mean, it was such a genuinely fun read to me.
Yeah, I mean that painting has been used to drive some point about like what is important, who is the subject of this painting, where should our focus be, etc., etc. I think it is just a tangential way of saying, oh, this is the earth you're saying, what exactly you should pay attention to, or something of that sort. I
Yeah.
mean, even whatever the committee has written, it's only about, the fragility of earth, which
Yeah.
has been appreciated, and also like it sort of makes you think about it, like how fragile all of this is and how much is at stake. Though I don't know what exactly as individuals you can do. um, yeah, I think we discussed many of those things uh, which we had planned. There was one more thing which I did want to mention a bit about the negative feedback
Yeah.
or the negative reviews which I sort of came across on Goodreads. Like the split is like something like 60-40. Like 60% of the people believe that it has 4 plus ratings out of 5, but some 40% of the people think it's like not that great. Like it is 3 star or below. And one of these people, I mean, you whether you agree with it or not, it's so it seems like people who have criticized this book have already read Cosmos by Carl Sagan. Um, this some person called Ian has written, this book is an uncompelling pastiche of Carl Sagan's Cosmos, down to an exact copy of the cosmic calendar. The book is not scientific enough to adequately educate on science. It's not speculative enough to be compelling science fiction. It doesn't have enough character development to be a compelling slice of life novel. And it doesn't have a narrative to be adequately described as a literary novel. Instead, it falls squarely in the same category as the shower thoughts of that one stoner everyone knew in high school who could say, wow, space is so cool, man. Utterly disappointing,
Speaking.
and without even reading the other nominees for the Booker Award, this should not have won. I mean, this is for people who want to put every book in a bucket, right?
Yes.
And even for, though in this case it didn't happen, even my mind is set in such a way that everything falls in certain categories. And sometimes it's hard to comprehend that you don't have to be in any of these categories. I mean, there's no compulsion as such. As long as you can, you know, uh, something can make you feel a certain way. And maybe, I mean, it depends on where you're coming from. So, probably if someone reads this and doesn't find it interesting, it's probably normal, it's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is something I wanted to touch upon. Maybe everyone won't enjoy this.
Yeah, maybe like if you are very keen on looking at a structure
Yeah.
which has a very clear beginning, middle, and end with like a very, plot line. Like this is, although I find some of the reviews to be pretty bullshit, okay? You want character development in a course of a day. Like this literally is one day in the life of these astronauts, right? You cannot get a character development in a day. So it's just it's just poor comprehension on their part. First of all, I'm not saying people cannot, you know people should like the book. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying that you should try and grasp the context of the book first, like where is it written and how is it written. Also, I think the book is, space here itself is an allegory for, making a case for the planet itself. Like when you're up there, you are literally as neutral an observer as you can be, right? You are not in the particular space to be affected by it, right? And yet we see that, there's this chapter. If I just want to read a bit from that,
Yeah.
I think So uh, it goes, the hand of politics is so visible from their vantage point that they don't know how they could have missed it at first. It's utterly manifest in every detail of the view, just as the sculpting force of gravity has made a sphere of the planet and pushed and pulled the tides which shape the coasts, so has politics sculpted and shaped and left evidence of itself everywhere. They come to see the politics of want, the politics of growing and getting, a billion extrapolations of the urge for more. That's what they begin to see when they look down. The planet is shaped by the sheer amazing force of human want, which has changed everything: the forests, the poles, the reservoirs, the glaciers, the rivers, the seas, the mountains, the coastlines, the skies. A planet contoured and landscaped by want. Now, this is like, you can see how this is a direct commentary on the existing, geopolitics of the world in some sense, right? That you see who gets to want more, who gets to, explore these frontiers, who gets to actually realize and fulfill their ambitions in any form. Like, these are at the perhaps the most extrapolated form of ambition, that you literally are out of the planet. But even in our daily lives, if you want to, like, uh, achieve something, or if we are ambitious about something, uh, it's very difficult to say that, uh, you know I will do it in this particular way, or maybe you have some idea about that, but life is not so straightforward, and I think the book is a good example of that. Life is does not really follow a structure, neither does the universe in per se. It does follow a structure, but it's like inconsequential in our lifetimes. It happens on a cosmic scale. So when we say negative reviews of the book in terms of plot development, character development, and all of that, I think it should be understood the where the book is coming from, what is the context of the book, and what kind of mark it wants to make. And I think what I personally found very beautiful was that it's literally a cry for help in that sense. Like, please save this planet. It's a beautiful planet, and you can do something about it if you choose to. So I think, yeah, it's not for people who want like a very defined kind of a book in terms of, oh, there's going to be some plot line, some drama, some hero, heroine, and all of that stuff. I don't think it's for them. They should probably just steer clear.
Yeah. I mean, we were discussing this even earlier. I think there can only be two extreme reactions to this book, right? Either you feel that, I mean, the fact is that you're insignificant and the amount of time you're going to spend is very, very less in the cosmic scheme of things. And your reaction to this can be like a sense of urgency and a desire to leave some sort of mark, no matter how small or how big it is. Uh, and the other reaction is like nihilism, right? Like, anyway, we don't matter that much. Anyway, the time I spend here is very, very short. Like, who the fuck cares whether I make good use of it or bad use of it? So, let me become some sort of a smoker, drunkard, let me enjoy. I mean, that is like a absurdist, or I don't know. What do you call this? Is there a better word for this? I don't know. It's like throw away. Let me throw away this thing because anyway it's worthless.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the only two extreme reactions you can have if at all you want to have a reaction. Um, I don't know. Where do you fall in this?
I I don't know. I think for me it was very clear that it definitely makes you think about what you're doing with your life. But for me, the biggest thing of the book was, again, as I mentioned, it's a cry for help for the planet.
Okay,
Like,
I understand. It's at the global level.
yeah.
It's a cry for help. Like, there are like 7 billion other people who also need to feel the same.
Yeah.
But obviously, I don't. I feel you don't see it as something which you need to, you know. I mean, you didn't feel anything at a personal level. It was only at a global level.
Personal level, no, for me, personal level, I think this book really helped me. I think I mentioned it to you earlier that, I want this year to be more observant about my surroundings, about the passage of time, and about um, time should not just pass by without me noticing.
Hmm.
So I think this book does a very good job of that, because it segments the time and space into 16 sunrises, 16 sunsets, 16 days, 16 nights, and that sort of really put me in that. And the book, the way the descriptions are there in the book, I think this is something that I want to do. Like, if I can describe my life in this detail, whatever interactions I'm having, whatever I'm seeing, listening, hearing, smelling, touching. So I think that definitely did for me. With the two extreme reactions you mentioned, I don't think I had any of those reactions. But this book, for me personally, I think I would want to have that level of detail in my own life in terms of observation around me.
Hmm. So it's like paying attention to detail. That's what you're
Yes,
talking about.
yes. Because there's this quote in the book, it says, space shreds time to pieces.
Hmm.
Okay. And that this is the point that I made for myself, that isn't it true for our inner self as well, in the sense that space that we have within ourselves, we don't share it with others, and the internal, if we think of time as a concept for our own selves,
Hmm.
we do, it's already March. Did you feel the passage of time of these two
Yeah,
months in
exactly.
2025? No. Why is this happening? Why is time passing us by without us knowing?
Yeah.
So I think this is something that I've been struggling with since last year, and this is
Hmm.
something I want to do about in this year. So I'm
Hmm.
trying to make sense of time in a more mindful way, in a more grounded way. That is something that the book has definitely pushed me in a certain direction towards that.
Yeah, I think it's a mild way of saying that okay, I'm running out of time. Let me do something with it.
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah. So you were talking about like it's a very quotable book and all of that, right? So obviously we'll sort of end with some favorite quote of yours or something of that sort. But is there something which I've missed and you wanted to speak about it from your notes and you didn't get a chance to speak about something important? I mean, I would like to listen to something which I didn't ask. I mean, something which I didn't give you an opportunity to speak about.
Um, Two things actually. One was, I'd say, so I recently watched Interstellar on its 10th release
Hmm.
anniversary,
Hmm.
and it was quite an interesting experience because I had just finished Orbital and went to watch the movie. I think within a span of a couple days or something like that.
Hmm.
So for me personally, it was a surreal experience. Of course, I realized that I don't have the same sense of wonder I had as a child,
Hmm.
but somehow, uh, as much as the aspect of space touched me back then as a child,
Hmm.
like, the technical aspects of it, of a black hole and all of that, I realized that as I grow up, I place so much of my importance on emotions, because this time I could totally understand the entire idea of what love is, and how love uh, is something which transcends space time,
Hmm.
right? And it pulls you across universes to pursue something, which your gut feels, and gut says it's right, and it's something of love for something that is making you do it, whether it is the love between a daughter and a father, whether it is a romantic kind of a love between two people.
Hmm.
And this was an aspect I had not noticed as
Hmm.
much as a child, right? But in my this viewing of Interstellar, I think, and especially after reading Orbital, I think my focus was more on that particular emotional aspect of the movie. And I could see how the book talks about how it is so cold and dark and everything there. Like, these cosmonauts, the astronauts and cosmonauts, they don't know each other, but they are the only family that they have up there, right? So they have to bond together. They have to create those boundaries. They have to bond. Like, similarly, back in Interstellar, those four people, they might not have the same mindset about things, but they have to. You
Hmm.
have to make do. So that kind of extremity, kind of bringing people together, is something that I had not noticed earlier in the movie. And in my rewatch, I think I found myself drawn more to the emotional aspects of the movie.
Hmm.
And this book definitely evokes that kind of emotional response to being in space itself, where space itself becomes a character. It kind of becomes an entity unto its own, and you are just grappling with the reality of being in space. So I think these two connected really well for me in this particular rewatch, and they both the book and the movie, someone will like literally bash me for this, for saying this, but they kind of gel together really well for me.
Why would the bash? I do agree it would.
Yeah, no, some high-browed cinephiles would feel that, oh my god, this heathen woman, I don't know. Not that I care, but still. But, and I think overall, that was a bit that I really, really liked. Another thing that a similar
It's
book.
like a book and movie combination that works.
Yes.
Like it's like a jukebox kind of a thing. Like there was some website which used to match quotes with some songs or something of that sort.
Oh yeah, something like that. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. So like if you read this book and then go watch Interstellar or watch Interstellar and then read this book, you'll be like,
Yeah.
oh wow, this is coming together really well.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. Another plugin that I was feeling while reading this book is it had a very similar feel to Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino.
How?
In the sense that ruminating quality,
Hmm.
like the way Marco Polo describes cities, are these cities internal worlds and all of that. So I thought, for me personally, it had a lot of resonance with that, internal worlds of people, internal worlds of people being manifested as cities, and internal worlds of people being manifested as space. I think that was a parallel that I was drawing in my head, and I think I found the quality of these books, the way they are written poetically and lyricism wise, to be really similar. But it could be just me, also because I love it, Invisible Cities, and I try to find, it in every place I can. But yeah, I think these two are the things that I wanted, that you did not ask me, but I wanted to shamelessly plug in anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I have read it. Invisible Cities by Italo Calvino that
Yes.
is right. Yeah, I think we should talk about it some other time, but I couldn't see the parallel because Italo Calvino is basically reporting what he saw in different cities to the emperor, and he's just making up shit, even though he's only in one city, right? So, I mean, the parallel here is what? Okay, we are seeing just one Earth and we are imagining many other planets. I mean, I didn't see that parallel, what you were trying to say.
I'm saying that your interpretation of the world is coming from your experiences. So, in that sense, that each astronaut is looking at the planet from their own worldview, from how they have brought up, from their social and social context, their national contexts. For example, the two cosmonauts. One of them talks about how Russia, kind of ingrains it within you that space is such a great thing, and that it's a thing of national pride and all. So their approach to looking at Earth will be very different in a way. And someone else like Chie is coming from, she's the first Asian woman to be in that particular pod, and the way she looks at this will be very different. So I think in that sense, like how Marco Polo is looking at different cities, is also like a reflection of his own different stages of him being, let's say if he's just talking about one particular city, I'm not going to spoil for
I already
purposes,
said it,
yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, but it is coming from one particular point in time. When you look at something, you are like, it's okay. At some other emotional state, you look at something and you're like, oh, profound. Right. So I think your context kind of determines how you're looking at things.
Okay, it's about like different ways of looking at the same thing.
Yes. That's what I found. And also the lyricism of it, like, how the things have been described. I think that way I found a parallel between the two. Maybe you should revisit Invisible Cities.
No, I remember its contents, but I get your point now. I mean, it's not so obvious. It's like very a bit
Roundabout.
yeah, a bit vague, but I can see the parallels here. So yeah, so help us with your favorite quote, and with that, we'll draw close to this conversation.
I'd like you to go first on this one because there are way too many quotes that I like in
But
this book.
that's what. Obviously, it's very hard to pick something
Yeah,
when you have
it's
a lot of options.
very, very, very hard. I'm literally going through the whole book again, trying to find out, where, uh, what is this one particular quote that I should talk about. But oh my god, I think it's insane. Um, but let me talk about, I mentioned a few quotes already. There are, yeah, I think there are these two, three quotes where, it's been talked about as how space has been a frontier for man's hubris. So I had already mentioned, right, that Chie's mother talks about you must never forget the price humanity pays for its moments of glory because humanity doesn't know when to stop. And in a similar vein, Pietro talks about in one of the chapters that man's hubris, a hubris so almighty, it's matched only by his stupidity. So, there are these, and then this another quote where is like he's never sure if man's lust for space is curiosity or ingratitude. So, all of this common thread of this conquering over nature, conquering nature, universe, and all of that, it's a very masculine way of looking at it, right? And I think that the book makes a great point to make sure that we are aware of the consequences if we just keep approaching it in this one particular way. But overall, I think the book is very, very quotable. If you can find a particular quote you would like to share, it's like, um, so I think, yeah, I think in the similar chapter that I mentioned above, I think there's this one quote I really liked. Uh, so I'll just go. I think this is a very good part of the book which I really really liked. One day they look at the earth and they see the truth. If only politics really were a pantomime, if politics were just a farcical, inane, at times insane entertainment provided by characters who, for the most part, have got where they are, not by being in any way revolutionary or percipient or otherwise wise in their views, but just by being louder, bigger, more ostentatious, more unscrupulously wanting of the play of power than those around them. If that were the beginning and end of the story, it would not be so bad. Instead, they come to see that it's not a pantomime, or it's not just that. It's a force so great that it has shaped every single thing on the surface of Earth that they had thought from here so human proof. And I think this kind of, and then later it goes on to tie into how pollution, climate change, and everything is, kind of just a result of human want and human want for more and more power. And I think it ties in well with the other quotes that I shared, right? The hubris of man. So yeah, I think this was something of a more common theme for me, and this is why I think this is my favorite quote because it sums it up so well. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll just call this my favorite quote for now, provisionally. If I come up with something else, I'll share it with you in the notes.
yeah. By the way, even I didn't know the meaning of pantomime, like, or maybe I'd forgotten. It means a dramatic entertainment. So it's, I think the author is trying to talk about the theatrical value of all of this. My favorite quote was kind of very simple because I wrote it down. Um, I think we can end with this. It it. I mean, I'm just reading that quote now. How are we writing the future of humanity? We're not writing anything. It's writing us. We are wind-blown leaves. We think we are the wind, but we are just the leaf. I think that is a good summary of things which even you wanted to speak about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was yet another good conversation. Thanks for dropping by,
Always a
and
pleasure.
thanks for bringing all of this passion about space and all to this conversation. And I hope people who listen to this will give it a thought or maybe pick this book and read it.
Yep. Always a pleasure to be here, and hopefully, we'll be having another discussion about some other book soon.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.